Hello, everyone. Hopefully, you can hear us and see us. We'll be starting momentarily. While we wait, Techosaurus Rex is asking, is that Fighters on the desktop planned for Windows 11 or Hudson Valley? Excellent question. I don't know. It could be this year, could be next year, depending on when it's finished. It could be a Windows 11 or a Windows 12 thing. That's the beauty of Windows development these days. Nothing has a set deadline. Everything just shows up when it wants.
Let me mute. And okay, let me get the voice recorder up. La, 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 la. All right. I'm now recording.
I'm now recording.
3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Windows Central podcast, episode 310 for May 5th, 2023. Hey everyone, Dina Rubino joined with Zach Bowden for another exciting episode of the Windows Central podcast, back after a week because Zach is all refreshed from having a mini vacation. Lucky him. Oh yeah, we should probably we didn't cover last week's news, I guess.
Well, some of the stuff I've got in the list is from last week, so.
Fair enough. We'll be going to, speaking of, Windows 11 news and updates and builds and changes and something with File Explorer and Photos app and a bunch of stuff there. Windows roadmap updates, which is kind of interesting. And then we got the Surface Duo's in trouble, which probably isn't a surprise to anyone, but we'll kind of go through what we mean. And we'll also talk about Pixel Fold, because as, a lot of information leaked already on the Pixel Fold, but one of the leaks was, on, I think it was May 4th or 5th, they're going to kind of leak it themselves on social. And sure enough, like clockwork, Google did. But we actually got to see a little video of it, and so we'll talk a little bit about why we're excited about that device, especially since we don't have a full Duo 3 at least. New Bing AI announcement. So yes, another week and more Microsoft news here. And I actually went to New York City this week, which was a terrible day for me. It was not a good travel day, but the Microsoft stuff was really cool, at least, and I briefly got to see people. But I'll go through sort of what's new and what they're doing there and why I think it's really good stuff. And we'll also hit the story about Microsoft retires its own brand accessories, which is just the continuation and back and forth in Microsoft's oddly consumer hardware division and how they keep changing everything. Plus, if we have time, we'll do Thing of the Week and anything else that comes to mind. Plus, some reviews that we had come out as well. Zach, how are you doing after your little vacation there?
I am not too bad. I'm lovely and refreshed, and I'm excited for our long weekend here in the UK, which you don't get to
Yes. I hate you guys so much. Yeah, if for those who don't know, the UK, explain briefly what is a bank, why they call bank holidays, first of all.
I actually don't know why they're called bank holidays. I think it's because back in the past, it was when the banks closed. And so if the banks were closed, nobody was working because there's no money to be given because there's no banks open. I think that's where it originates. These days, obviously, it doesn't mean that. It just means day off. It means you don't have to go to work. Just chill at home. And usually it's on a Friday or a Monday, which means you get a longer weekend. Unusually for the UK, this month is quite a busy one for bank holidays. We have 3 bank holiday Mondays, almost back to back this month. So we're loving it. This weekend it's because of the coronation. We are crowning a king. Even if you don't care about that, you still get the day off. So that's
what we've come to as a society. Yeah, and unfortunately, like 80% of the Windows Central team is UK based, so my Mondays are pretty lame. So I'm just like twiddling my thumbs, like, wait, no, so I gotta write stuff? I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations on getting a new king.
Thanks. It was hard work. We got there in the end.
Yes. Well, that's good at least. So you guys are getting plenty of days off. Hopefully I'll get one someday. But I guess let's dive into it right now with the Windows 11 news. So what's been happening there with the insider builds? And there's some new stuff with File Explorer and Photos app, I believe, was announced as well.
Yes. So actually, we'll start with last week's build and this week's build. Not that there was much in last week's build, but I think it's worth mentioning that they added. Wait, let me see if I can find it. Give me a sec. I've got so many tabs. Last week, and this will tie in to one of the other topics we'll talk about in a minute. They updated the widgets picker in the widgets panel. So they're rolling out a new widget picker experience to Windows Insiders and the Canary and Dev channels. With an image that gives you a visual preview of the widget before pinning, a deep linking ability that allows users to jump directly to the picker from the provider's app/service, as well as a link to the widget store collection page where users can discover more apps with widgets. So Microsoft is slowly but surely building out this widgets experience that they've been bundling with Windows 11 since it launched. And I posted a story just a couple hours ago. And I think I've mentioned this on the podcast before, so it shouldn't be new news to anyone who listens to this regularly. But I am hearing that Microsoft is planning to allow users to pin widgets to the desktop at some point, which will be an interesting addition, because obviously right now the widgets experience is contained in that single widgets panel. If you don't ever open the widgets panel, you never really get to see your widgets because that's where they are currently. But I am hearing that Microsoft is, yes, working on the ability to allow you to essentially basically drag out those widgets and pin them to the desktop so you never have to open the widgets panel to see them first. That's going to be super cool. And it will remove the barrier for entry, I think, for a lot of people, because one of the reasons why I don't really use the widgets on Windows is because they're in that widgets panel. If they were always on the desktop, I'd use them all because I can see them almost all the time. So that would be pretty cool. I'm not too sure when that's supposed to show up. Maybe we'll hear more about it at build, because there is a build session where they're supposed to be talking about Windows widgets and whatnot. So maybe they'll announce it there, and that'll be really cool. I think, for me, the most useful widgets so far have been the phone link one, because you get to see your phone notifications. The calendar one's really nice as well, and also the OneDrive one, which shows you like memories on this day from a few years ago, which I've always enjoyed. So having those, being able to pin those will be great, and that may also play into the whole Windows vNext thing with the focus on tablets again. Perhaps they're trying to sort of create an Android home screen experience on Windows, which will be really interesting, and widgets will obviously help enable that. So that will be super cool. Dan, do you have any thoughts on widgets on the desktop?
Widgets. First of all, I kind of hate saying widget. I don't know why. It's just, I mean, I want them on the desktop, right? Right now, the widget panel is cool, but I'm sure I'm not, in the minority here when I say that I don't really use it that often.
Yeah.
I kind of forget it's there. I got to move my mouse all the way over to the right-hand side, which on a 43-inch monitor actually is like a half a mile. So I just don't find myself using it as frequently, and it's not because I don't like the concept. It's just the well, first of all, I think it should be just a movable icon on the taskbar, and I should just be able to put it wherever I want for quick access. But I think the idea of putting it onto the desktop, right, mirrors the phone experience that everybody's more used to. Yeah. It's something that's been around technically for ages. If you go back to old versions of Windows and third-party apps that basically used to let you do this. So it's something that's very familiar with people. I think it's more useful. Then again, I should also say that, how often do I actually look at my desktop, since I always have a browser open and all that. I will say on a laptop, though, it's weird. My behavior on a laptop, I tend to always see the desktop, but on my desktop, really? I rarely see it. Yeah, I don't know why it is.
How strange. So for me on my ultra wide now, I actually run most Windows not full screen because it doesn't make sense to do that unless you're running two apps side by side. Yeah. So right now, for example, I can actually see my desktop even though I've got a bunch of windows open, and there's literally a perfect space. You know how Skype has that stupid mini window that it pops on display of the person you want to call with? That is currently in the top right corner where all the widgets would go if I was able to put them there. So that I think is going to be really cool, especially again that phone link one, which gives you your phone's battery life, your recent notifications, and your connected status and stuff. That's going to be awesome to just have on the desktop. I'm actually really looking forward to that. I know obviously a few people have made the connection to Windows Vista and Windows 7. This is just Windows desktop gadgets making a return. Yeah, I mean, in spirit, of course, yes. The Windows had this before; they took it away. There were major security problems with that original gadgets platform. So this certainly isn't a successor to that. This is a whole new thing. It's based on web tech. I actually don't know what the old one was based on. It could have also been web tech, but I don't know. But yeah, this is all part of the widgets experience, the existing Windows 11 widgets experience, I believe. So yeah, they're just enhancing that thing, and I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully, they're able to ship it. The only problem I can see them having is maybe there'll be some internal conflict with the MSN team going, wait. The only reason people open this is for the widgets. Don't take them away from us. So I don't know. Maybe there'll be a bit of a debate between whether or not that actually ends up happening. I hope it does. I know it's something they are working on. So hopefully it ends up shipping. All right, moving on to other changes in the latest Insider builds. Microsoft is finally now testing the modernized details pane in the File Explorer. This has been rumored for some time, /enableable in some earlier builds in a hidden way. But it's now officially in testing. So slowly but surely, quite literally bit by bit, Microsoft is updating the File Explorer with modern interfaces. So we've got the modernized header now, we've got the modernized context menus, we've got the modernized details pane, we've got the modernized gallery view. We're still waiting for modernized address bar and search bar, and we're still waiting for modernized home view and folder view. And I guess by extension, we're also waiting for a modernized sort of sidebar, which still hasn't been updated yet, though I do believe that is in the works internally. I would also love to see, and I assume this is in the works as well, but like an updated file properties dialog and stuff when you right click on files and select properties. That is still from ancient Windows time. And it doesn't even support dark mode. And I think what Microsoft should be doing right now is they should be looking at the File Explorer, and any interface that doesn't have dark mode should just be getting an automatic promotion to some modern interface. Because otherwise, what the hell are they doing at this point? But that's pretty cool. What's nice about the new details pane is that it also sort of ties in with Microsoft 365. So if you use Windows for work, for example, and you're constantly sharing files backwards and forwards between Teams or Outlook, the details pane will now pull in related files based on recently shared files in other threads or related conversations. So if you did receive a file in an email, for example, you'll be able to see that email in the File Explorer and any new emails that may have come in since with updates and all the other stuff. You've also got recent activity. So if you're sharing, say, a Word document and you have a bunch of people commenting on it or making changes, you can actually see those changes being made in the details pane as well without having to open the file. So that's a pretty nice addition. Moving on from that, Microsoft is also now testing another layout for the Windows Spotlight thing. They've gone backwards and forwards on this. I don't think this is actually new. I think they tested this briefly earlier this year, then they pulled it, but it's back now. And yeah, it looks cool. It looks kind of like a big widget, believe it or not. So maybe that ties in with the widget stuff we just talked about. And on the subject of widgets, Microsoft has also announced Facebook.com is getting a widget. So far, the only third-party developers we've seen support widgets is Spotify and Facebook. Facebook has Facebook Messenger, and now Facebook.com. Spotify has... What even is Spotify? It's like a recent playlist thing or something like that. It allows you to jump into a playlist and start playing it straight away, which is okay, I guess.
Yeah, mine shows new music Friday. So.
Yeah, mine says bank holiday weekend, and then it's just like dance playlists. But yeah, so that's that. I don't think any third-party ones, at least not that to my knowledge. Maybe some smaller developers have started adopting it. I'm not too sure, but most of them are still first-party. And yeah, there you go. That's your update on the widgets. Microsoft is let's see, where else are we? Microsoft has brought back the recommended websites thing in the start menu now. So if you use Edge to browse the internet and you visit a website frequently that isn't installed as a PWA, the for you /recommended feed at the bottom of the start menu now will maybe present it to you. Go, hey, you sort of visit this website a lot. Would you like to access me through here? Would you like to pin me somewhere? Which is kind of cool. And yes, they're also updating the widgets button with animations. So when you hover over it or click on it, you'll get I've got it enabled here. That's cool. They've got it so the icon will sort of play a little animation just like the rest of the system icons, which is kind of fancy. So that's all the news for the actual builds themselves as far as I'm aware. We want to move on now to some of the app updates, which is quite interesting. We'll mainly with the Photos app. So Microsoft announced yesterday or a couple of days ago that they are updating the Photos app with a bunch of new features, including a new slideshow experience, which now has sort of themes and animations and transitions. So currently the Photos app, when you click on slideshow, just does a basic, here's an image, here's the next image, here's the next image. But now, similar to what I believe iOS does, maybe even Google Photos, if you set up your slideshow, you can actually customize what kind of slideshow you get. So there'll now be animations, transitions, music. There's 25 original music soundtracks to choose from, and different themes as well. So depending on the kind of theme you choose, you'll get different animations and music that go with it, and it all plays to the music, and it's pretty cool. It's a very consumer-focused feature. But yeah, they've added that now to the Photos app, which is pretty fancy. They're also adding a timeline scroll bar, which is almost identical to the timeline scroll bar on OneDrive.com. If you've accessed your photos through OneDrive.com before, you would have seen that there's like a scroll bar on the far right, which gives you like dates and stuff. And now they're bringing that to the Photos app as well. And then lastly, or the most important change, I think, is they're finally bringing back the spot fix tool, a thing that I only used the Photos app for one thing in the past, and it was the spot fix tool. Then they took it away when they redesigned it for Windows 10, and then when it got an update for Windows 11, they still didn't add it back. But now finally, in 2023, like 4 years after they took it away, it's finally being added back, and I'm very happy about that. So hooray for that. That's now in testing in the Insider, Canary, and Dev channels, and will likely roll out to the public in the next few weeks and months. So I believe that's all of the Windows new features and updates. Dan, do you have any thoughts on anything we just discussed there?
No. I'm actually partially distracted as my boy cat, PB here. He insists on chewing everything. And he's going through my papers and a box and just making noise and chewing on stuff. And so he's a little distracting. Anyway,
well, that's okay. We can, unless you want to say something, we can move on to the next topic.
Nope. No, it's fine.
Well, in that case, let's talk about the Windows roadmap, because Microsoft last week, this is last week's news now, so I apologize if this is old news to you, but last week Microsoft updated or published a new roadmap for Windows 10 and Windows 11 LTSC. So we'll start with Windows 10. The big Windows 10 news was that Microsoft announced that the version 22H2 release that's currently shipping will be the last version of Windows 10. Microsoft has no plans to ship Windows 10 version 23H2 later this year or a 24H2 next year, which means Windows 10 is done. Quite literally and officially, Microsoft is done adding or developing Windows 10 in regards to new features and platform enhancements. Not that they've been delivering platform enhancements to Windows 10 recently. The last platform release for Windows 10 was in, I want to say 2020, maybe late 2019. I can't remember now. It's been a while for Windows 10, but it has still been getting new features here and there, sort of minor ones. But that's coming to an end. Microsoft is no longer going to be developing Windows 10 features with the suggestion, hey, if you would like new features and stuff, upgrade to Windows 11, because that's where their continuous innovation efforts are going on. So if you're a Windows 10 user, you will remain on Windows 10 version 22H2 until the end of life date in October 2025, at which point Microsoft says currently you will need to upgrade to a newer version of Windows if you'd like to remain supported. If you're running a PC that doesn't officially support Windows 11 or above, then you're screwed and you have to buy a new computer, or you could just bypass the checks, which is what I think a lot of people should do, because Windows 11, we've all talked about this before, runs fine on even unsupported computers. But yes, and obviously that also doesn't factor in the possibility that Microsoft may even extend the deadline for end of life a couple extra years, which is kind of what they've done with old versions of Windows. Then there's the Windows 11 LTSC news. So for those who don't know, LTSC is the long-term servicing channel, and it's a version of Windows that is essentially designed to be released and then never touched again ever. And it's really only built and aimed at IoT-based devices, or environments where, say, you've got medical equipment that really doesn't need to be installing new features very often. So that's the kind of the device that this version of Windows is supposed to run on. But what's interesting is currently Windows 11 doesn't have an LTSC release. Windows 10 was the last version. To get that, I think it was the 2019 release or something like that. I can't remember. And these versions of Windows are supported for quite a bit longer than the usual sort of annual feature update. An LTSC release can be supported for 5 or even 10 years. So the fact that Windows 11 doesn't have one yet was kind of interesting. But Microsoft has announced that as of the second half of next year, there will be a Windows 11 LTSC release, which will be supported for 5 or 10 years. They haven't said for how long yet, but that will be the version for these sort of devices as we just discussed. And that's quite interesting, because that's when we've been hearing that the next sort of major version of the Windows platform is expected in the second half of 2024. Now, Microsoft does say it's Windows 11 LTSC, but I will remind people that Microsoft referred to Windows 11 as Windows 10 until Windows 11 was actually officially announced. All the stuff they were testing in the Insider program for that 6 to 12 months before Windows 11 was officially unveiled, they were calling it Windows 10 version 21H2, and then it was like, oh, actually, by the way, it's Windows 11 version 21H2. So wouldn't surprise me if they did the same thing with Windows LTSC for next year, or maybe it will be Windows 11 LTSC, and they'll just ship that as like a final version of Windows 11 alongside Windows 12, which is supposed to begin launching. We keep calling it Windows 12 again. That's the working name. We don't know if it'll be a Windows 12 or a Windows 11.1, but that is supposed to be in the second half of next year as well. So cool. Thanks, Microsoft, for the Windows roadmap updates. It's nice to see that there is an actual plan here for some of this sort of stuff. I'm curious on your thoughts, Dan, about the Windows 10 stuff. Are you surprised that they're sort of done with it so soon, or did you think that this is probably about the right time?
Yeah, it's and they don't want to be supporting technically 3 operating systems, right?
Right.
Windows 12, or what we think would be Windows 12, Windows 11, and Windows 10, plus all the additions that those have, right? It's a lot of work, and it's like, what's the point of continuing developing Windows 10? But obviously, a lot of people hold on to laptops and PCs for many years, and if you're at that edge and your PC doesn't qualify for Windows 11, yeah, it's a little bit of, it's tough to tell people, go buy a new computer, right? That's not like practical for many people. But on the other hand, as you point out, you can technically bypass this stuff. It's not hard to do. I think we even have a guide up, and there's plenty of guides on the internet to show you how to do it. But it's sort of an extra step, a little confusing. And for non-tech people, it comes across as like hacking, right? It's like, oh my God, what am I going to do here? Am I going to ruin it? It obviously it's not, but your average non-techie person's not going to get it. Yeah, so I don't know, but I understand it from a pragmatic perspective as a company. They got to keep going forward, and Apple does this a lot too, right? I guess, well, I don't know. Do they block? They don't really block operating systems updates, right, for Macs?
So they do eventually. It depends on how old the device is, but there certainly comes a point where Apple says, right, this is not applicable to your Mac anymore. But there are ways around it on Mac, just like there are on Windows. It's not like a hard block. It's just hey, we're not officially offering this to you, but there's a third-party tool that you can often download that will enable Mac OS to run on older hardware. Yeah,
I mean, it's never like I said, if you're on an older PC, there's just no way to spin this as like good news, right? And it's an unfortunate byproduct, but
yeah,
as a software company, they got to keep going forward. And obviously, the reason why they're making these hardware blocks is a lot of times it's for security. At least that was for Windows 11. I'm sure that'll play a part with Windows 12, but Windows 12 will probably be more focused on AI. And with AI, you gain the benefit. Well, you don't need, but it helps to have an NPU, the neural processing unit, which is dedicated to handling that. Because you could force it on the CPU, but then it's going to obviously take away CPU cycles and slow your computer down, as well as kill your battery life more, since NPUs are more efficient for that task. So I think that's going to be kind of the angle for Windows 12. It's like, of course, it doesn't mean if you're a Windows 11 user, you'll probably be able to go to Windows 12. I don't think it'll be that, but that'll be one reason to buy a Windows 12 computer, is to have NPUs. And I think, we always talk about AI on this show here, and I think, it's going to be a bigger deal with Windows 12, the hardware interactions and all that. I think it's going to be pretty important. So I think it kind of makes sense, but like I said, there's no way to spin it if you're on an old Windows 10 computer. Outside of just take things into your own hand and try to, bypass the locks and get Windows.
It's not the first time a version of Windows has left support at some point, right? Like, this happened with Windows 7, it happened with Windows XP. The world survives. The world doesn't grind to a halt because a version of Windows is done or out of support. So it's like, the same thing will happen with Windows 10. People will move on to, but by 2025, I think Windows 12 will be a thing, or maybe will become out on Windows 13 if Microsoft wants to stick to a 3-year release cycle. No. That's not how that works. No, we'll be midway through Windows 12 at that point. But you get the idea. Like, there will be a newer version of Windows than what we've currently got. And so maybe people on Windows 10 will like that one more. Because for whatever reason, I feel like Windows 11 has a pretty bad reputation. And I don't know why it does. I think it's just because people want to stick to that formula of one release is good, one release is bad, one release is good, one release is bad. And so people
it's always the Yeah, and it's always the current release is the bad though.
Yeah, yeah. People are forcing Windows 11 to be bad so that the next one could be good. Even though I think Windows 11 is a better Windows 10. I don't see how
Oh
it's
yeah.
worse. And in other than the taskbar, if you're a taskbar power user, then I'm sure I get why you don't like Windows 11. But if you were just, I think for most people, Windows 11 is just amazing, way better than Windows 10. But yes, that is the updates for the Windows roadmap and stuff. And now we should move on to another topic. Let's talk about our favorite device, the Surface Duo. So this story is kind of the combination of multiple bits of pieces of info that I've been hearing over the last handful of months. And again, some of this stuff I have mentioned on the podcast before, so this may not be new to you. But essentially, I wrote an editorial this week, news editorial, I guess, titled "The Microsoft Surface Duo is in Trouble." And in the article, I basically detailed the uphill battle the Surface Duo team or the hardware is sort of kind of facing currently internally. You know, earlier this year, there were a bunch of layoffs, and with the economy sort of nosediving, Microsoft tightened its belt a little bit, and they were like, okay, we kind of everyone in the company, we should be focusing on products that we can guarantee will at the very least break even or make a profit. And that's a problem for the Surface team for reasons you probably understand. The Surface team previously has been quite experimental. You know, they would try new things, and a lot of their products were very high-priced, low volume devices like the Surface Studio, Surface Laptop Studio. The only Surface devices really that sell at large are the Surface Go line, and that includes the Laptop Go and the Surface Pro. All the others are kind of just like enthusiast grade hobby projects for Microsoft in a for lack of a better term. So the Surface Duo is one of those devices that Microsoft probably isn't making money on. You know, I think it's fair to say that the Duo was not a huge financial success for the company, though I'm sure they wish it was. It almost certainly wasn't. So when the tightening of the belt came earlier this year, the Surface Duo was kind of put on the back burner. I don't believe it's cancelled. That's not what I'm hearing, but what I am hearing is that it's not currently a priority because Microsoft would like to focus on Surface devices that will make money, because they need to be able to tell shareholders, or I guess the board, that hey, you know, Surface is still viable, please don't kill us. There's lots of money that we made. So that's what's happening. And it's not just the Duo. A lot of Surface devices have been pushed back. Even the Surface Pro 10 I'm hearing now is pushed back to next year. We're not getting a Surface Pro 10 this fall. That's what I'm hearing as of right now. But they're focusing on the Go stuff, I think, this year, and the Surface laptop, because they're sort of guaranteed to make money. And the other thing is, you know, Microsoft has lots of excess stock that they need to get rid of first. So that's kind of one of the reasons why I think the Pro 10 is being pushed back, because they have lots of Pro 8s and Pro 9s that they haven't sold yet. And they'd like to get through that stock first. So bringing it back to the Duo kind of is suffering from that angle, but it's also suffering from a resources angle as well. One of the things I heard last year was that some of the Duo team were being pulled away from the actual Duo project and moved on to something else. This project has now been announced as Teams Rooms on Android. And this is an AOSP effort by Microsoft to sort of become an Android vendor, but for Teams-based devices. Teams peripherals, you know, like desk phones or conferencing devices, those sort of things running Teams. Previously, OEMs would build their own sort of software and then license the Teams integration. But now Microsoft, with Teams Rooms on Android, has control from the ground up. They control the whole OS. They control the firmware updates. They control the whole lot. So that's what Microsoft was working on quite a bit last year, and has now been announced officially this year. And that was mostly the Duo team working on that, which is why you've seen Android 12L come, and it launched in October or September last year, and then basically nothing since. You've had no bug fixes or firmware updates to really improve things. And that's because, again, a lot of the team were working on this Teams Rooms on Android thing, and there's just not enough people to go around to help support the other stuff as well. And that's a big problem for the Duo, because obviously we're now starting to see things where Android teams are building features for Android, and the Duo's not getting them. You know, Bing AI and SwiftKey is a perfect example, and actually this is what encouraged me to write this post, because I reached out to Microsoft and said, hey, you know, Bing AI has come to SwiftKey. Your AI efforts are like the biggest thing right now. Why does every Android phone on the market have this except the Duo? Is it coming to the Duo? And they gave me a nothing to share response, which is never a good sign. And then while I was there, I also asked them, hey, can you give us an update on Android 13? Is that in development for the Surface Duo as well? And they also gave me a nothing to share. Now, I had heard as of late last year, this may have changed, but I don't think it has. Late last year, there was actually no existing plan to bring Android 13 to Surface Duo. The thinking was Android 12L and Android 13 are quite similar anyway, so we might as well wait for Android 14 first. That, I hope, is still the case, but we'll have to wait and see in regards to that. But that leads me also into the partnership with Google, that Surface Duo, or that Microsoft was sort of very proud of when they first announced Surface Duo in 2019. If you remember on stage, you're like, hey, we're working closely with Google on this device. And that may have been true for a short while, but my sources say that the partnership with Microsoft extends no further than a sort of typical Android OEM partnership that Google holds with other people. In fact, in the last year, it's actually gotten worse because I'm told that Google wouldn't even offer Microsoft early access to Android source code ahead of general availability. This is something Google often does with Samsung and other sort of big OEMs who have devices up and coming and stuff. So, for example, Android 12L, Samsung got access to that source code months before Android 12L was done, so they could start working on that release of their One UI release for the Galaxy Fold 3 and Galaxy Fold 4. Microsoft was like, "Hey, Google, can we have this so we can start working on this for Duo?" And Google told them no. So Microsoft had to wait until Android 12L was done in March before they could start working on an Android 12L release for the Surface Duo, which is why it took so long. Samsung got theirs out, I think, at least 2 months before Microsoft did. And Samsung's version of Android is way more custom than Microsoft's. Microsoft is almost stock, other than they've updated the themes and stuff now. But that's why that took so long, because Google didn't give them a head start like they did Samsung and other OEMs. So whatever their partnerships, that partnership doesn't seem to be working at all. And my sources don't know why. My theory is that maybe it has something to do with the rumored mobile app store that Microsoft is working on. Google would not be a huge fan of this for obvious reasons, but who knows if that's the actual case. And so, that brings me back to the Duo 3. Like I said, as far as I'm aware, the Duo 3 isn't cancelled. They still want it to be a single screen foldable with a 180-degree hinge. But it has an uphill battle ahead of it, right? This year especially is going to be a really important year for future sort of experimental hardware like that for the Surface team. Microsoft needs to get itself back into a position where it's confident enough to be able to focus on experimental devices like that. And it also needs to invest in the Android team more. It needs more resources in that department, because if they have this Android team and they're focused on this AOSP project, they need to have people who also are able to service their own hardware, because otherwise you can't have hardware without software. That's the big thing about phones, right? And if the Duo 3 is a copycat form factor, if it's like the Pixel Fold or the Galaxy Fold and stuff, then the differentiation has to come via software. It can no longer be the hardware, because the hardware isn't different anymore. So they will need to put resources and investment into the Android side of things. And so I hope Microsoft is able to sort of get back on track and do that. I'm not super confident, but only time will tell in regards to this, unfortunately. Dan, what do you think?
I have no thoughts.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm just kidding. No, we got to take a little bit of a reality check here as well.
Yeah.
So, when they're pulling back plans and support, we have to remember that they see which devices are active, right? They get that telemetry, but it's not like they know, Zach is using his Duo 2, but they know how many downloads there are now. Yeah, active users of it. And my guess is, like you and me, we both like the Duo 2 a lot, and we were gushing about it last year, but it's a year now. It's over a year. And we both for me, I got into the Pixel 7, which I'm back on this week. Then there was the Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra, which is arguably the best Android phone on the market right now. And they're both very exciting devices. And I don't think we'd be the only ones who, if you're on a Surface Duo, you're definitely a early adopter tech enthusiast. Most people, 98% probably. I'm sure there's the one person who's just taking the risk, but most people are early adopters. They have a little extra money. They're taking a risk on a new form factor. And those people are also very likely to move on to the next best thing. And so my guess is they're seeing the numbers and they see wow, there's not a lot of active users even compared to what we sold, which if you're seeing that stuff, you got to be so do we bother? And I get the point with Android 13 as well. There really is not a lot new in Android 13. this always gets back to that joke where people are like, I want Android 13 or whatever the next version is. You're like, or what's in it? What do you want? And they're like,
Yeah.
it's just newer, But so I can understand Android 14, but still, it's never like, again, it's never a good story to be like, oh, we're going to skip a version of the operating system versus, Samsung, which, gives constant updates usually. And, and now we can segue into the other story, right, which is the Pixel Fold, which is about to come out. And so we talked about on the last podcast, all the specs have come out basically. And then Google this week ran a video on Twitter basically showing off the device already, right? So it matches the renders and everything we've already seen. And I think you and I are both excited about this device because in a lot of ways it is, I would say it's like a Duo 2.5, right? It's not going to be quite what the Duo would be, but it's pretty darn close. It wouldn't have Microsoft Launcher on it, although the question is, what would Microsoft Launcher be like on it, right? Would Microsoft update Launcher to support it? Does it support it already? Like, there's a lot of interesting questions. But the design of the Pixel Fold, you and I think, are both excited about because the orientation / aspect ratio is different from the Fold from Samsung. This is a wider device, not as wide as the Duo series, but it's close, has a better aspect ratio, has a much larger outside screen, and it has those Pixel cameras, which I think the ones are rumored from the 7 Pro, I believe.
Right.
Yep. Doesn't matter. I mean, I have the 7. One of the reasons I switched back to the Pixel this week because I love the S23 Ultra. It's an amazing phone that literally does everything, has the best display, and the battery life is absurd. I mentioned how I usually go to bed and I have 70% battery life. I wish I could say the same about the Pixel 7. I go to bed and it's about 30% battery life. Yeah. But the Pixel 7's cameras are just strikingly still better than Samsung's, and I kind of like that. So being able to get those kind of cameras on a folding device that has an aspect ratio that's closer to what you and I prefer, I just think this is like an awesome thing. And so like, it's hard to say, if you're a Duo user, like why would you not go to a Pixel Fold? I also like Google's software implementation better. It's not pure Android because they do put their stuff on it, but it's a very stripped down version of Android. And I just like their little tweaks that they do. One of my favorite features is just how it IDs music and tells you on the lock screen. I just think that's just like super cool. And they have, of course, the phone stuff. I like their notifications better. I just like the way that they implement Android better than Samsung. So having all that on a foldable device for me is going to be super exciting. And, I'm very, very likely to get one. And I think if you're a Duo 2 user, it's probably your best bet as well, because at the earliest we would expect a Duo 3 would be spring 2024.
Later than
and
that.
Like even, and I was gonna say even that is being very optimistic, so it's like, that's a year at least. So I don't know. I feel like, and now with the Pixel Fold, I almost feel like this gets to the question of like, all right, so Microsoft comes out with the Duo 3. How do they differentiate themselves? Now, they don't need to completely differentiate themselves because we have this discussion endlessly on this podcast about how, like, it's not like one company came out with a slab phone and then LG and everybody else was like, why should we make a slab phone? This one company just made one, right? Meanwhile, there's like a dozen or more Android devices out there that are slab designs because they come in different sizes, different thickness, different batteries, different cameras, different screens, different price points, right? So all that matters in this stuff. So there is room here to differentiate. It doesn't mean like Google Pixel's Fold can be the only Fold out there or Samsung's. Although I would argue for both in Western markets, those would be both the top selling ones. So how does Microsoft come into this? The other issue, though, as you point out with the Duo 2, is just it's not a good sign. All right, why would people buy a Duo 2? Well, they bought a Duo 2. Why would they buy a Duo 3?
Yeah.
After sort of like, because there's this question like, are they going to stick with it? Right?
Yeah.
Is this going to be a permanent device in their lineup? I think they want it to be because they want to have, the foot in the door with Android devices. We've talked about how Lenovo is making their own phone now to match their PCs. And I wouldn't be surprised if HP did this at some point as well. and they have an opportunity, right? What's cooler than having a Surface phone that works with your Windows 12 PC, right? That's
Yes.
tightly integrated and mirrors that. I think that experience they really do want to deliver, but they have a lot of challenges here to win people over. I mean, the one thing that would benefit them would be if Duo 3 came out and it was outstanding. The reviews were just like 4 out of 5, and the software was great and it's polished and it gets excellent hardware and it's just better than the Pixel Fold. Like if that could happen, it definitely would stand a chance, right? Then it's got like momentum. If it comes out though and it's like they still don't get it or still got software glitches, that'll be kind of the death knell of it. So
Yeah, and I do want to say that I do think that they will do a Duo 3, or I should say, I do think there will be another Surface phone from Microsoft at some point running Android. I don't think that idea is dead. I just think for now, with the focus on products that they can guarantee will make them a profit or break even, the Duo is not one of their devices, so it gets put on the back burner. But I know for a fact they still want to do it. They still view Android as an extension of Windows, and the Surface team has aspirations and goals, and they would like to make more phones. I've said it before. They even have plans to make a normal, traditional slab phone at some point. They want to do that sort of stuff. It's just because of the the climate and whatever else, it's now not.
yeah,
It doesn't make sense for them to do it currently.
I mean that's another really good point, right? That
Yes.
I didn't mention that the market right now is not great for Android
No,
phones. I think it's
absolutely.
down 13% year over
Yes.
year for all the brands. Now, Apple just had their earnings this week and they were up 1.5% for iPhone sales, which was surprising. It was actually like that was good, but that's a very low number, right? And the rest of their numbers weren't so good. Their subscriptions did well, but MacBooks were down 30% in revenue, which is exactly the same number that Surface was down in revenue. So mind you, we're talking about revenue, not shipments. Mac still ships way more than Surface but we don't know those numbers. But the IDC, I believe, reported shipments were down 40%. So then you have the shipments are down 40%, and out of that 30% revenue decline. I don't know if those numbers work out, but they're suffering the same problem that not only are people kind of content with their PCs right now, but they don't see that as an opportunity to go and buy a new one. So the Android market, Samsung is down. Who else? The Chinese manufacturers are definitely down a lot. In fact, that's a bigger story almost, that Apple is doing very well in China because it's seen as an aspirational Western brand, and you're basically in the it crowd, kind of like here in the US, to be frank, if you have an iPhone. And they're turning their back on their own Android phones that are made there in China, which is super interesting. But it's a tough market to release an Android phone, that's for sure, no matter how good it is. Now, Google can do it, but we should also remember Google's Pixel line has not been a financial winner for the company either.
No.
It gets a ton of press attention, mostly because they give them out to everyone, but they haven't sold a lot. In fact, I think the rumor was that like the Pixel 7 series is the first one that actually may have done pretty well for them. But up until now, it's been kind of a loss leader. But it's the same idea behind Surface, which is it's meant to set the precedence of how good an Android phone could be. But Google also has a terrible history of doing what is happening now with Duo, right? Which is releasing devices and then just kind of canceling them. There's a whole website dedicated to Google killed this. Now Google has killed a lot more software than hardware, but their Pixel laptops are gone. Remember that? Like that was a whole series. And they were pretty well reviewed, although crazily expensive for what you were getting. So it's a tough situation. I don't know if even Google. And don't forget, we should mention that the Pixel Fold is not cheap. I believe the price is $1,700 for it. So it's not like they're coming in below. Like this is going to. It was $1,100. Like they're going to undercut everybody. Like $1,700. That's still really expensive, and that has not budged since the Fold came out. So like, it's still going to be a very expensive device with a questionable form factor, released in a climate where Android phones are just not doing well at this point. So I think Google has a big challenge ahead of itself. Fingers crossed they have a really good trade-in program, because then we can all take advantage of it.
Yeah.
Because if they do that, I think they'll have more adopters. But if they're like don't have a good trade-in program, I think it's going to be really tough to sell it. I think tech media will be into it, but your average consumer won't. So.
Yeah. The last thing I'll say about the Duo stuff is that for Microsoft now, I think it's all about optics, and the reputation Microsoft has now in regards to phones it wasn't good when the Duo came out, and it's now not good with the Duo, because of it. For phones, you have to stay current. You can't just ship a device and then leave it. Like you can't. You kind of can with PCs and you kind of can with desktops and stuff, but you can't do that with phones. Phones need to be updated on an annual or 18-month cycle at least, or at most rather. The fact that the Duo didn't get a successor in 2022 is bad enough, and now we're not getting a successor in 2023. That's even worse. The original plan was they were going to do a Surface Duo Go at the end of last year to fill the gap until Surface Duo 3, which was supposed to ship at the end of this year. Duo Go was cancelled, Duo 3 dual screen was cancelled, and now they want to work towards this foldable device, which is going to be more expensive than the Duo 2. It just is, and it's not coming until the end of 2024 at the earliest. It's like, guys, it just doesn't look good. It's
like, what was weird too was the Duo 2 came out. It was a pretty fast turnaround between Duo 1 and Duo 2.
It's because they had a vision for the first three Duos. They did the original. As they announced Duo 1, they already sort of knew what Duo 2 was going to look like, and they were already in the concept stages for Duo 3, which was at the time supposed to be a dual screen device. But then when the Duo 2 launched in November 2021 and reviewed very negatively, that actually surprised the Surface team and Microsoft in general. They were kind of expecting the Duo 2 to be a bit of a hit in regards to, it's an improvement over the Duo 1 in every way, except if you remember when the Duo 2 was announced, the reviews were actually almost worse than the Duo 1 reviews. The reviews for Duo 1 were quite optimistic. The Duo 2 reviews are like, I don't get it anymore. Just do a foldable. So Microsoft essentially pushed on the brakes and said, okay, let's rethink what we're doing here. We were going to ship Duo Go next year. Let's cancel that. Duo, let's experiment with foldables and see where we are in a year. And then by the end of 2022, they were like, okay, we're going to go ahead with Surface foldable. But obviously, since they're essentially starting from scratch, it's not going to be ready by this fall. There's no way it's going to be ready by this fall. Now they've got to do a whole lot of extra investment in the software to differentiate the hardware. And it's now basically a whole new product. So that's what happened. It looks like from the outside that there's no planning, but what really happened is the plan they did have changed. And so
and the market responded, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it was a shame too, because Duo 2 hardware wise was such a step up. Granted, the device got thicker, but it was such a step up in hardware. It was such a better experience. It did lose the cool form factor, the benefits of the Duo 1, but it got real cameras. It got high refresh displays that were better. Like, battery life was good. It got NFC. Like, all of this stuff really mattered, right? The software eventually got there, but yeah, you're right with the reviews. Yeah, they're in a tough situation with this stuff, and it's a shame that the dual screen. Don't forget the original vision that Google had with these devices was sort of like the early days of 2-in-1 PCs, where we saw a lot of experimentation. We saw devices that had screens that spun around on an axle. And then ones that flipped around, and there were just all sorts of different experiments that OEMs are trying, and we never really got to that stage here with these new devices, right? It seems like everybody's just like, they'll just go with the fold ones. The dual screen, no one really wanted to try it besides Microsoft, and even with the folding ones, only Samsung is sold in Western markets.
It really wouldn't surprise me if the partnership between Microsoft and Google originally was on this idea that we're going to do this hardware, this dual screen thing. We think other people will want to try it as well, and so Google was like, sure, we'll invest in this. We'll help you guys out. You can help us out. You can commit to the source code. We can work together on this. But then it became clear that, actually, it's only Microsoft doing this, and they've only sold 60,000 units. Why are we giving them early access to source code? Why are we letting them mess around with all this stuff and trying to support this form factor that nobody else is building for? So Google were like, actually, Microsoft, you can do that in your own little space. We're going to focus on Samsung and all the other OEMs that are building hardware that people want to buy. And so that also probably didn't help out the Microsoft's efforts either. So yeah, it's sad, but again, I do think we will get a Duo 3. I'm going to call it Duo 3. I don't think they'll call it Duo. I think that brand is not a thing anymore. I think it will be a
Surface,
successor.
yeah, it would just be Surface Fold.
Fold.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. It'll be or Surface Notebook or something like that. I don't know. But that will be what it'll be. They'll do more phones. I'm relatively confident of that.
Fair enough. All right. Going to do the Indeed.
Yes.
Indeed.
So before we carry on, I'd like to take a quick second to thank this week's sponsor, Indeed. What's a game where no one wins? That's the waiting game. When it comes to hiring, don't wait for great talent to find you. Find them first with Indeed. When you're hiring, you do need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Instead of spending hours on multiple job sites searching for candidates with the right skills, Indeed's powerful hiring platform can help you do it all. They streamline hiring with powerful tools that find you matched candidates. And with Instant Match, over 80% of employers get quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed matches their job description the moment they sponsor a job, according to Indeed data in the United States. Now, one of the things we love about Indeed is that it makes hiring all in one place so easy because it gets you one step closer to the hire by immediately matching you with quality candidates. Even better, Indeed's the only job site where you only pay for applications that meet your must-have requirements. Indeed is an unbelievably powerful hiring platform, delivering 4 times more hires than all other job sites combined, according to Talent Nest in 2019. Join more than 3 billion businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. Start hiring now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/WCP. That offer is good for a limited time. Claim your $75 credit now at Indeed.com/WCP. That's Indeed.com/WCP. Terms and conditions do apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Thank you indeed for sponsoring. And now back to the news. And it's our favorite part of the week, Dan. It's the AI segment.
Oh, right. Yeah, that happened this week. Yeah, so Microsoft had a small event in New York City at what used to be its flagship Microsoft store. And we got invited, as well as just some other tech press. There's also a lot of influencers there for creator stuff. It was kind of a different crowd. And so they had some updates to announce. Some of them were pretty basic. Like now anyone could sign up and use the Bing chat stuff, which was kind of already in place. Like basically if you signed up before, it was like a lot of people were getting instant access. In fact, we had a story on it a couple of weeks ago. But now it's official that it's still in preview, but now it's like an open preview that everybody can kind of use it, which is kind of cool. So they would get more users. They still feel more confident in it. The other thing is something we were expecting because, again, it was kind of hinted at a few weeks ago. We did a story about it, which is third-party support via plugins is coming. And the first 2 I've seen were OpenTable and Wolfram Alpha. And how it works is like you have in the settings, you'll have like a little toggle and you can do that. Obviously more will be coming, but say for OpenTable, which is used for finding restaurants and booking tables, is you can ask Bing Chat, be like, hey, I'll be in New York City on Saturday. We're looking for really good Indian food from a high class restaurant that takes reservations, and then it'll basically find it for you. You can even put like 7 p.m. and it'll find a place for you, and you can click the link. It'll open. It'll already have like the reservation kind of filled out for you, including the time. So there's going to be stuff like that. Wolfram Alpha will basically do more math and scientific questions. It'll show you how to do things, and kind of that leads into this other thing, which is now that when you ask inquiry questions, say like, I want to know how to make a quiche or something like that, which it's, I guess, a big thing in the UK this weekend. It will not only bring up like recipes, but it can surface up like a YouTube video showing you how to do it. So it'll actually go out and find media or an image of the thing you're looking at, which is kind of cool because it's more of a multimedia experience versus just pure text. So instead of you going and searching on YouTube, it's going to go and find the best content for you and bring that in. On the reverse side, another feature that's coming is the ability for you to upload a photo, and you can then ask the AI about that photo. And there's a couple of uses for this. One, like say it's I don't know, it's like a shelf or something or a table, and you want to build it. You can be like, hey, I want to build this. How do I get started? And it'll give you information about it. Or I imagine you can use it for shopping. Sometimes if you ever seen a TV show or something or a photo out there, and you're like, oh, that's a really cool couch. Where is that couch? You can use Bing, and it'll be able to hopefully find that couch for you and give you the buy link for it and all that kind of stuff. And you can also answer questions about what's going on in the image. There's like lots of neat applications for that. So that's kind of, I think, the big news. I'm trying to think what else there was. There was a bunch of small things that they announced. The new Edge improvements are coming. So they're going to move the profile photo over to the extreme left-hand side, which matches more of their apps. And there's stuff you can do now, like say you're in Bing Chat, and then you open a website, that it's recommending or something like that. What happens is the Bing Chat will then shoot over to the side panel, and then it'll open up the web page so that you can view the web page, but you can still be in the chat, and it'll do that kind of automatically. The other cool thing is it's carries over your history now. So if you're chatting with Bing on your PC and then you hop to your phone, you can kind of continue that same chain of thoughts and history there. And you can even import and export chats, which is kind of interesting. So, and it could do graphs and charts now, which is kind of neat. So not only this gets back to the visual stuff, so you can ask it about certain sales of something, right? And besides just giving you numbers, it can actually make a bar graph for you or do any kind of chart. You just ask it to, and it'll generate that for you right there. So it's definitely becoming a lot more powerful. They're definitely listening to a lot of user feedback here on all this stuff. Did I miss anything else, Zach? Do you remember?
No, I think that's basically everything, yeah.
Let's see. I have my notes that I took down from the other day. Unfortunately, I was only there for a very short time. Let's see. Can upload images to Bing, plugins, chat history, can import bookmarks. Oh, yeah, this is kind of cool. The tabs thing. So if you're like me, I tend to sometimes have 100 tabs open in my browser because I just live in the browser all day. You can ask Bing Chat to organize your tabs, and it'll go ahead and create the grouping for it based on subject for you automatically, which is pretty cool. I think we'll see a little bit more of that. You can even do stuff like ask it to import your bookmark history from another browser. And what it's going to do, of course, it just goes into the settings for Edge and gets you kind of set up there. But I think you're going to start to see a little bit more of these kind of tie-ins where you can get AI to sort of assist you on doing other types of tasks and organizing things. So that's kind of cool. Oh, yeah, knowledge cards, images and videos and search results. So knowledge cards are when you already go to bing.com and you do a search. Sometimes you'll see a thing on the right-hand side pop up, and then they call them a knowledge card. It'll have usually a photo. It'll have a brief description. It'll have like a Wikipedia icon and some other info below it. It's basically a text and visual summarization of the thing you're looking for. And you can kind of click any of that stuff and go into it deeper. It's a really nice, like, instead of just getting a list of links to websites, this kind of gives you the summary of kind of what you're looking for. So now that knowledge card can actually just show up in chat. And when you click it, it actually almost full screens and blurs out. It looks really kind of cool with the graphics that they did with it. I'll shift over. Oh, yeah, longer document support. A lot of people have been asking about this one, too. So, yeah, say you have a PDF that's like 50 pages. Like you can go out and get PDFs of entire chapters from books. You can then, you can ask it to summarize the chapter, but they see it more of like cliff notes or asking for specific information about the chapter. But you can do kind of whatever you want. And there's no limit on the size of the document, but it can go through. And not only will, like, say you ask it a specific thing to find, not only will it summarize that for you, the thing you're asking about, but when you click each bullet point, it'll jump to the part in the PDF and it'll be highlighted where it is. You can quickly find what you're looking for. It's really good instead of like having to breeze through a chapter and scan or do a keyword search and hope it's the thing you're looking for. This will be more of a kind of a cognitive, give you context on the thing that you're trying to find without wasting your time. I think that was kind of it. I think that's kind of. Oh yeah, and they're going to start integrating ads a little bit into Bing Chat, which makes sense. And I know no one really likes ads, but the reason for that is because I think they eventually want to kick back some of that ad revenue back to the sourcing that they're getting the information from. Because this has always been a big question about, if they're summarizing information and people don't need to go to the website to get more, then, how do content creators get money? And so, having ads in there every once in a while is going to be one way to do that. So I think that's kind of about it. They still have a lot more plans, obviously, coming. But they're making a ton of progress, right? Let's don't forget here, Google is still messing around with Bard, which no one talks about, right? No one talks about Bard outside of it's just not that great or people aren't using it. But they haven't even begun to integrate any of this stuff into Google's product lineup. Meanwhile, Microsoft is just going full steam ahead. And not only they've already put it into their products, but now I would call, they're on their like second generation already of these products, right? They're already building out more and more features, refining things, and just make it a smoother experience. I mean, I use it all the time in the Edge browser. I think it's really kind of cool how they did it. I don't know. What do you think about these announcements that are that happened?
I'm a big fan of it remembering chat history, because that, I think,
Yes.
moves it from being a one-time use thing quite a lot of the time to something that can be more personalized. And if it syncs with you, and it, like, you can, because I believe one of the things they talked about was, you can start a conversation in Bing Chat on the web,
Yeah.
then click into a link, and then have that handoff to the Edge version, and it's the same conversation and stuff. That sort of experiences, those experiences, I think, are going to be really important to making this AI more personable, more personalized. And because for now I'll be able to start a conversation on my PC and then pick up on my phone, whereas before the phone wouldn't know what the hell you were just talking about, because Bing would act like you're a brand new person. And so I think this is the beginning of that, right? So now it can start learning you and remember some of the things that you like, and your preferences and whatnot. Whereas currently, again, like right now, you start a new chat with Bing, it's like it's never met you before. It's like, oh, I'm me. Yeah, here's what I like. Now they can begin adding those sort of more personalized things into it, so they can be like, oh yeah, I remember you like, this sort of recipe or this, that, and they can
Yeah.
give you contextual suggestions. At least, that's not been announced yet, but I'm almost certain that's what they're working towards, right? A
Oh
more
yeah.
personalized
Yeah, that totally
thing.
makes sense. Yeah,
And
I
that,
guess
and
it
I
tells you.
think chat history is the beginning of that, because now it can actually remember conversations. So
I
yeah.
wonder if it'll be like Alexa, where it just voluntarily gives you ideas like, I can now do this. I'm like, yeah, I don't care. I didn't ask. But Alexa does it all the time. It's always like offering, like, I can do this for you. I'm like, no, I didn't ask you to do that. Just, but I get it, right? They're trying to. That's basically what people would call an ad in Windows, by the way, right? They're
Right.
saying that's an ad, where it's just, I get it though. Amazon's like, hey, we have new features this thing can do. Let's have Alexa tell you that this thing exists and it can do it. So I jokingly find it annoying, but I totally understand the reasoning behind it. But yeah, it'd be kind of cool if the Bing Chat in the AI gets to know you and your history a little bit more, and of course they'll give you control over that, right? I'm sure you'll be able to go into your Microsoft settings and wipe out history, just like Google or your search history, right? You can control. Um, this is all good stuff. I think it's really interesting watching them innovate really quickly and iterate really quickly, I should say, on these various platforms. I still want to see. I think now the widget. I forgot to cover this. Yeah, the if you use the Bing widget on Android and you click the microphone, it now goes into um, the Bing chat, which is kind of cool. They haven't done that yet though for Microsoft Launcher. Let's see. Yeah, Microsoft Launcher still, when you hit the microphone, goes into the old thing. So I hope they kind of update that soon. But
Yeah.
I don't know. This is cool stuff. It's fun. A lot of people are making use of it, but we're just still at the beginning of this. So
Yeah, totally. I still am waiting for it to become that sort of AI assistant for your phone. Obviously, it won't be able to do everything that a built-in assistant can do. But you're so right about the whole microphone night button not tuning into this. It's actually wild that it still isn't. Like, come on, like, how is this not
yeah,
like a thing that you're already working on? We should have asked that when you was at the event.
yeah, I would have gotten a no response or but
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, I
yeah.
mean, I'll iterate again. Like right now, the widget is basically a search widget. And if
Yes.
you shrink it down, you can just get like a microphone, the Bing logo, and then like the visual search. But what they really should do is just have a microphone, like the Bing chat icon,
Yeah.
that you could just put on your phone, and you just tap that, it goes right into it.
What they should also do is they should make the Bing app an assistant that you can set in Android
Yeah.
settings, so
Yeah,
that
it's
when you
weird.
hold
You
the
could
button,
set Bing as a I don't know if people know this. You can set Bing as a default browser,
yeah,
and you can set it as a default SMS client.
right,
I'm not kidding. It doesn't really work in the US, but you can do that, but yet you can't set it as a client or an assistant, which is very strange because you think this would be, and I don't know why that is, if they're building that out or there's restrictions. I'm not really sure what's going on there, but yeah, you would think, and again, I think, getting back to the Android phone stuff, right? This is another area where Microsoft could have a leg up because it could really build this stuff natively into the phone experience, which would be sort of really cool. They could technically do that now with Microsoft Launcher. Like Microsoft Launcher should have they should have your Bing chat right now. How about in the, what do you call it? The feed on the left-hand side? Like they could just have a Bing chat there and you could just go right into the chat experience, right? That'd be kind of cool. There's a lot of opportunities here. Hopefully, I mean, maybe we're being a little quick on it. They only announced this, was it early February?
That's true.
So,
yeah, the Microsoft launcher team were like, we didn't even know you're working on this. Give us some time. Actually, I'll say that the launcher team haven't done anything with launcher in about a year.
I know it's true.
It's been a while.
Nothing.
Yeah,
like
it's not. I wonder if that team's like not a thing anymore. Like, because I assume Microsoft Launcher went under the Android division at Microsoft, but I'm wondering if maybe it's like without a dedicated team now. I don't know. Because
find out.
Yeah, I'll try. It's rubbish now.
I mean, I still use it as my default, but you're right. There's just been no. I mean, who knows the usage rates on it as well, right? I still prefer. Although I will say on the Samsung devices, it's kind of annoying. At least I haven't figured out a way to do this. When you're on the home screen on a Samsung device using the Microsoft Launcher, you can't swipe up to get to your apps for the multitasking to bring up the card view. You can only bring up the card view. Yeah, you can only bring up the card view when you're already in an app.
Weird. Yeah, that's annoying.
I don't have an issue on the Pixel. It works fine on the Pixel. But for some reason with Samsung, there may be some kind of setting or something, but I haven't been able to figure it out. So it's kind of strange. But yeah, that launcher team, it was so weird. That was another one where they were just on a roll, kept introducing new designs and features. And yeah, they haven't touched that forever. And we're not talking about the Duo. We're just talking about the regular Android version. So
yeah,
I don't know what happened there. Another chance for them to innovate, and we haven't seen anything. So
it's a real shame. Yeah, I would love them to just like give it a proper Windows facelift and just be like, hey, this is like the launcher that makes your phone more like Windows. And I would be all over that, and I think a lot of people would. But
now featuring Bing Chat AI.
Bing, yeah, exactly. They could be like, this is the first launcher with AI built in, or something like that. Like, Microsoft just wastes everything.
Yeah, I mean, an AI like that on the phone could be really interesing, right?
I mean, this is also why I think they're going to remain doing Android phones, because they are in a position to be them and Google are in a position to actually make genuinely AI infused phones. Google will definitely be doing it at I/O with Bard and stuff. Microsoft could do it with a Surface Duo 3 or a future Surface phone with the Bing stuff, and they could even have, they're rumored to be working on their own NPU processors and whatnot.
Sure.
NPU processors that they could put in a phone, and it would be like they could do it, but it just requires them to actually have a vision and want to commit fully, because it's not just about the hardware, and then it's not just about the OS, it's about all the other teams that build Android apps also need to take part in that vision and build for the Microsoft's own hardware. And that's the current problem with the Duo.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully they're working on this. Maybe the launcher team is like taking a step back and thinking of how they can, build the AI into this and make it really a core experience.
Yeah.
I would like to believe that, but maybe, maybe not either. So we'll have to kind of wait and see there. But yeah, launcher team, if you're listening to this, just give us some reassurance that, we got something coming. Like that'd be enough. Just give us a little something. Anyway, speaking of, wow, this is a really negative podcast. Microsoft retires its own brand of accessories. Although, I guess we should clarify. So they're not really getting rid of they're getting rid of the Microsoft branding for accessories, so like Microsoft keyboard, but they're going to just fall under the Surface name, right?
Right. Well, kind of. So the news here is that Microsoft is no longer going to release accessories that are Microsoft branded. Up until for many years now, Microsoft has basically had two lines of
Yeah.
devices. They've had Surface lines, which has often been more premium tier, higher end quality stuff, and then they have Microsoft branded stuff, which is your $60 headphones or your $30 keyboard and all this stuff. Microsoft has been selling Microsoft branded accessories for years, way longer than Surface stuff. So when Surface came along, Surface didn't adopt all of that. Surface was like, no, that rubbish can stay over there. Allow us to do all the cool stuff over here. But now Microsoft has confirmed that actually they're not going to release any more Microsoft branded accessories. Any future accessories they release will be Surface branded, which could mean that they're gonna stop releasing cheap stuff and only focus on the premium stuff. What I think it means is Surface may actually be expanding into cheaper territory. It also certainly means that they're going to simplify the line, I think. I don't think we're just going to see random keyboards and mice come out of Microsoft going forward. I think they're going to be a lot more selective in regards to the kinds of devices they want to ship. And this is all in the name of simplifying the hardware portfolio. I think this all comes back to the recent layoffs and Microsoft tightening its belt. They're like, hey, we don't need to keep shipping all this hardware. Let's simplify things. Let's bring it back to basics. We'll ship Surface stuff, and that can range from cheap to expensive. But we don't need to have, because for example, if you look at the Microsoft store right now, you can buy the Microsoft Arc mouse for like $50, or you could buy the Surface Arc mouse for $70. What is the difference? Nothing. They are the exact same product. But that's currently what Microsoft's hardware lineup looks like. So they want to simplify, they want to pull back. And so the Microsoft branded stuff that exists on the store currently will remain there until they deplete stock. And then at that point, I don't think they're going to ship any more of them, and any future hardware coming out of those accessory lines will be Surface branded. So for example, the Microsoft Audio Dock, which just launched earlier this year or late last year,
right,
that will probably be a Surface Audio Dock in the future. So I think that's all.
I think this makes sense.
Yeah.
It was always weird having two.
Yeah.
Like they even had like a Microsoft ergonomic keyboard, then they had a Surface ergonomic keyboard.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I think the Surface, the only difference was there was some design differences, but the Surface one had the Alcantara, which, as much as I love Alcantara, really did get kind of brown on that device. So it didn't look great.
Yeah.
So it always was weird for them to have both those lineups. And yeah, you're right. The Microsoft stuff was always a little bit, more affordable. They had Microsoft mice versus the Surface mice. And they've gone back and forth, like on terms, like sometimes they would name Microsoft, sometimes it would be Surface, sometimes it would go back. It was always just kind of like this weird approach. Yeah, I guess now they'll just stick to Surface, and yeah, it'll be interesting. Will that be just a premium stuff, or will they have like a more affordable tier and adopt that? I don't know.
I think they'll venture into more affordable tiers, only because the Surface laptop SE exists, and that in any other world would have been a Microsoft branded laptop. The reason it wasn't is because I think Surface was starting to go, okay, we can probably start putting our brand on cheaper stuff. I don't think it matters. And then this is the result of that, is they're going, actually, let's just kill the Microsoft stuff. Not Microsoft brand rather, and just call it all Surface, because I think it increases awareness of the Surface brand, because more people buy cheaper stuff, right? Yeah, and I think Microsoft would like people to stop thinking of Surface as just PCs and as an actual hardware line, like similar to Apple or whatever.
I mean, they do generally build good accessories too. Their keyboards are really solid and always have been. Same with their mice,
Yep.
They
just need to make a Surface webcam with Windows Hello and other AI stuff.
Yes. Speaking of, let's just quickly, I'll just mention we did some reviews this week. Of course, we did a Redfall review. Redfall was a game that Bethesda, was it Bethesda that made that? I forgot what studio made it. It was one that Microsoft bought through the acquisition stuff. And there was a lot of hope about this game that it'll be kind of like a big release. And it was one of the first new games since the acquisition, and it tanked. It was from the team that made Prey. Prey didn't do great when it came out, but it's since gotten a kind of a groundswell of support, and a lot of people looking back on it as a kind of a classic game. I tried it. I didn't love it, but it was kind of interesting. But Redfall, the reviews have been generally terrible. Apparently, it doesn't bring anything new to the table. Phil Spencer had to go on an apology tour, which at least he was like honest about it. And Phil's always just a cool dude, but like he gave some interviews and talked about it, and owned up to the fact that this did not do anything for them. And it falls back, unfortunately, to Microsoft's ongoing problem with the Xbox Series, which is first-party titles and creating IP. They just not having a good run at it. Gears of War is, it's got its core support, but it's it's kind of run its life. Even though I would say the next generation stories they've been doing have been kind of cool. Halo is, well, that's not doing well. The racing games are doing well. They're still untouched there, but still not quite the same, right? And Nintendo, meanwhile, rides at Super Mario and Zelda and all that kind of stuff. And Sony keeps getting really good first-party games and, market the hell out of them. So I don't know where Microsoft is, going with this. Diablo 4 is about to come out, which that will do well. We're very confident that, but not Redfall, but Jez Corden did do a full review of it, and he was pretty, he calls it a vampiric open-world shooter with a bad case of anemia. So you can go read that one. We also did review the Dell XPS Desktop 8960. So if you don't know, Dell also makes desktops under the XPS brand. So they're a little bit more premium. This is a very clean and minimalist design. It's also a very powerful device, or rather you can configure it to be very powerful. I think the one we reviewed has an Intel Core i7 13th gen 700K processor. You can also get an i9 13900K and an NVIDIA GeForce RTX 4080 or even a 4090 on board there as well. So very powerful device, but with a very clean, modern design. This is a great, basically, desktop if you want something that has a ton of power that doesn't look like a gaming PC. Although, as Zach Bowden put in the review, it can absolutely game. It has no problems with thermals either, at least that they could find. So cool stuff there. We also reviewed the Thrustmaster T818 wheelbase, makes direct drive sim racing affordable with a catch. This is just in the series of people who go nuts with racing simulators and steering wheels. And you can basically, it's just a whole other level of driving. So that's kind of cool. Next week, I also did a hands-on with the new Acer SwiftX 16 laptop. They gave us a sneak peek at the a prototype of that one. That's got that's an interesting one. That's a 16-inch laptop with a 3.2K OLED display, which is absolutely gorgeous, and it features a new AMD Ryzen 7 840 HS processor, which is a really new chip. That's the first device. Now I couldn't benchmark it because it's so early, but that chip is supposed to be really, really powerful. And you're going to get the, supposedly the more efficient benefits of an AMD chip. And it's paired with an RTX 4050 graphics, although you can get other options there as well. And it's going to be in an affordable package. I think it's around $1,400 or something, or $1,600. It starts at, let's see, up at the end there. It starts at $1,250 for the IPS display, and it jumps to $1,600 with a 3.2K OLED with a Ryzen 9 and RTX 4050. So that's going to be a real powerful device for that's also very affordable. I'll also tease that I believe on Thursday, where I'll have a review going up for a new display that's coming out. I still have the 43-inch one, which I got to get that review out probably early next week as well. But this is a different one that's going to... I know Zach's excited about it. It has a lot of interesting features.
Has it not been announced?
You can't mention. It's been in... Well...
Oh, I see. No, I see why you can't talk about it. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. So it has been announced, but we can't talk about it. Because this will be a day one review, basically.
Right.
So we're getting a little early access there because companies like our coverage. But it's going to be really interesting. I'm going to have fun playing with that this weekend, so stay tuned for that. Of course, we'll talk about it on the Friday podcast. I'll also mention that, as we talked about on the last podcast, comments are now back on the site. We still haven't formally announced them, but you can definitely join in the conversation with comments in our forums, which are still being updated and revised, but it's all new sections there. If you have questions We're going to be putting them in there, about Windows 11, Windows 10 on how to do things, all that kind of stuff, where you have surface questions. We're going to have a Ask Windows Central kind of section there pretty soon. We also have the new newsletter that you can sign up for. It's currently going out on Fridays, which is basically the week in review stuff, but it'll be going out on Tuesdays as well pretty soon because there's just too much stuff that we cover and do original reporting of to put all into one newsletter without a ton of scrolling. But it's a new revamped styling of the newsletter and just looks kind of cooler and nicer. So if you don't have time to read the site every day, it's a great way to get all our biggest stories, original reporting, and things that you need to know in there. But yeah, that kind of wraps it up for us. Do you have a thing of the week, Zach, that you want to talk about?
Not really. I guess maybe the thing of the week is Guardians of the Galaxy and the whole Zune tie-in, which was a kind of nice surprise.
Oh yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah, so Microsoft sort of out of nowhere revived Zune.net, which was the original website where you could download the Zune client and the server. The server's not live, but that's what the Zune.net was, where your Zune would communicate with to be registered and stuff. Zune.net is now it's a reference to the Guardians of the Galaxy and the fact that the main character in it uses a Zune to listen to music. But they've now changed the website, so it's now part of a STEM challenge, I believe, and it's in partnership with the Guardians of the Galaxy movie, which just launched. And it's just cool. It's cool for Microsoft to sort of be referencing the Zune. They even created a new sort of advert for... I wouldn't say it's for the Zune because they're not making more Zunes to ship, but it's for Guardians of the Galaxy, but it features the Zune quite heavily, and it's cool. Yeah, Scott Hanselman did a YouTube video on the Microsoft official YouTube account where he's like, here's how to revive your Zune in 2023, and the whole video is basically him going, yeah, so it's officially dead and like there's no servers and stuff for it, but if you download this tool, which I can't recommend, you can bypass this, and if you download this thing, if you edit this file, which I can't recommend, you can get it to do this. And so the whole video is him just saying, here's how to do a thing that Microsoft doesn't officially recommend. But also, I just thought it was quite funny that Microsoft was doing a tutorial on how to revive a Zune. How about you just support the Zune?
I mean, what they should have done, and we have an editorial on this written by Richard Devine saying that this was a missed opportunity, which I agree with 100%, which is they should have done a limited run of new Zunes with Guardians of the Galaxy, some branding. Like, you don't want to put Guardians of the Galaxy on it, but they could have done some like cool logo or symbol on it or something from the movie. Had a limited run of them. They could have just had it designed, taken pre-orders, and like run the pre-orders for a week. Yeah, just pre-orders for a week. You close it down and you just build that many plus a little bit extra. And I guarantee they would have sold. I guarantee it. They would have sold.
I would have bought one
because
I don't even need one.
I was just talking about, I don't know if I mentioned on the podcast last week how I bought the new the Casio G-Shock. I forgot the name of it, but it was a tribute to the 5600 GW 5600, which is like this original digital watch that came out 40 years ago this month. Well, actually 40 years ago in April. 40 years, and they sold like millions of these things. And so they made a special edition of it. It has gold and all this kind of stuff. That stuff sells like hotcakes though, because it's just nostalgia. And Zune still has that. Now, there are questions about like, all right, now Microsoft doesn't have a music service, and in fact, a lot of people don't. Do people have MP3 still? And there's all that kind of thing. But they could have like, I don't know, put a basic version of Android on it, right, and have Spotify and Microsoft Launcher. Like, they could have just done a little bit here and done something kind of cool with it. I mean, actually, they would have made it way more. They just revived the Zune OS and just built Spotify somehow into it. Like, that would have been enough, right?
Yeah.
As well as allowing MP3s to be sideloaded onto it. But it was a really kind of a missed opportunity for them.
I was going to say, I don't even think they even need to go that far. I think they could just take the Zune HD, re-release that, and just update it so the software doesn't have to talk to the server anymore. And because there are people out there who still use MP3 players or iPods and stuff.
Yeah,
don't get me wrong. It's not a massive market, but I still, again, if they did it the way you say, where it's like we have pre-orders open for a week, then we just build all the pre-orders. They guarantee that they're going to make a profit because obviously they'd price it so that they'd make a profit. And then the people who are ordering that are people who kind of know either they're collectors or they kind of have room for a device like that. You know, there are people who use iPods to take to the gym, or for whatever reason use an iPod for what they want to use it for. The Zune could just be a modern version of that, and the market's not big, but it's a market that
It is
should
there.
certainly be catered to. Yeah, absolutely.
Sony still makes Walkmans.
Exactly.
That are
Yeah.
sellers.
Yeah.
They sell better in Japan, but you can go on Amazon, and there are other companies that make MP3 Walkmans and stuff like that. In fact, I was looking at some recently because I was thinking about getting one just for the gym too. Like one thing the Zunes were missing, of course, was Bluetooth. I don't think they had Bluetooth for wireless connectivity.
No, yeah.
But yeah, put a new Bluetooth module in there or something like that. It was kind of a missed opportunity that they could have sold that as a collector's thing. And like I said, if you just build to the pre-orders like this, again, not to harp on watches, but they do this all the time in watches. There's one right now I'm looking at that they're just building 500 of them, and like that's it. So these are small companies that can't afford to like have a lot of leftover stock, so they just do these limited runs. Like Microsoft could have done that. They really wanted to with the tie-in and have it launch with the movie. It would have been kind of interesting. It's a shame that they didn't do that, because I think a lot of people, I know you and I would have been excited. A lot of our core audience would have been excited to have like a new Zune that was kind of like you said, didn't have to talk to the server, maybe had Spotify on there and could sideload MP3s and had Bluetooth. Like done. Like that would be really kind of awesome to have. Microsoft, they sit on gold, Could have even had Clippy on there or something like that. Like
Bing AI comes to Zune. Let's see it.
Yeah. And now, we're pretty positive that Guardians of the Galaxy is over. I haven't seen it yet, but that's the thought. It's a trilogy. So I guess the first movie, focuses on Quill's mother. The second movie focuses on his father. The third movie apparently focuses on themselves as characters, and that's how James Gunn positioned it, which is kind of a really cool thing, because they're not. This isn't just like a trilogy that's just like, oh, well, let's just make a third one. It's kind of there's a tie-in of character development, which is why I think it resonates so much. I think it's some of my favorite movies that they've done, and I really love James Gunn as a director. So I'm excited about going to see it. So, but yeah. Anywho, I guess that does it for the podcast. As always, you can join us live Fridays, 1:30 p.m. Eastern time on our YouTube channel, where we will do now Q&A with the audience, but you don't get to hear that if it's recorded, unfortunately, but you can go to our YouTube channel and watch the videos there. Follow me on Twitter, Daniel_Rubino, Rubino, so long as Twitter exists, which who knows how long that'll be around. Hey, we didn't talk about Twitter this podcast, so that's pretty impressive. You can follow Zach at ZACBOWDEN. Who knows? Maybe in the future we'll be talking about our Blue Sky addresses. That continues to grow. But as always, thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you next time. Take care, everyone.
Wonderful. So yes, if you have any questions, we'll hang around for a few minutes and try our best to answer them. If someone's been asking this quite a few times, what changed in Windows 11 internally after Moment 2 on the February 28th, 2023? Entire approach to the OS changed. It didn't change then. It actually changed half a year before that with the they changed the schedule. They were originally just going to do one update to Windows 11 every year, but then they were like, no, let's cancel 2023's release of Windows 11. Let's do a thing called Moments, where they release new features on top of the 2022 release every few months. And so that's what we've been seeing. In fact, the Moment 2 update was, as the name implies, the second feature drop. We already had one in October last year. February was the second one. Oh, sorry, November last year. February, the second one. I think the next one's imminent, next couple of months at least, or at most. So, yeah, that's what changed. They call it continuous innovation, and it just means that they release a new major version of the Windows platform every 3 years, and in between, they service the in-market version of the Windows platform with feature drops on a regular basis. Do you think games like Microsoft Flight Sim will run on future Core PC-based Windows? I do not know. I don't see why not. It will depend on the addition of Core PC. If it's a stripped-back version, then probably not. But if it's a fully fledged version, then maybe. I don't see why it couldn't. But also, Core PC will only be available on new PCs, and I don't think gaming PCs will be. You won't see many new gaming PCs shipping with Core PC. Zach Bowden's, when will Microsoft finally modernize the tree pane in File Explorer and put WordPad in the store? I'm not too sure what you mean by the tree pane. Do you mean the folder view? Or the address bar? I'm not sure. But the answer is over the next 12 to 24 months. Do you still think it's more likely than not that a new Surface phone of some form will be out in 2024, or do you think it's now probably later than that? I'm still hoping it's late 2024. I don't know for sure. I know that they are working on the hardware as we speak. It's not like they're not working on it, but there's lots of moving parts when it comes to shipping a device. It's not just build the hardware, ship it. You've got to build the hardware. You've got to get software teams coming and build the firmware. You've got to get other software teams coming to build the OS. They've got to draw out what kind of unique features and experiences that the OS is going to have on top of that. It's a whole thing. I'm not privy to the whole picture at this current time, but I do know that there is hardware. They are experimenting, or not experimenting. They are sort of in early development stages for this foldable Surface phone. I have heard a couple things about the hardware that intrigue me, but it's still too early to really know for sure what this thing will look like. But yes. Is the Surface Go 4 further delayed to like the Pro 10? I've not heard anything about the Surface Go as of currently. But when I do, I will be sure to let you know. Daniel said, do you believe that Microsoft must finally place the recycle bin icon in the system tray or the taskbar and not on the desktop like an old paradigm? I don't think they must. But I think maybe it would be nice if they did allow you to pin it to the taskbar or the system tray.
Yeah.
So what Surface device will be released this year? Because the Duo/Fold next year, Zach also says so to pretend delayed until next year. So this is all still in flux, so please do not quote me on that. But as of right now, I believe the plan is to ship Surface Go 4 in the fall, Surface Laptop 6 in the fall, and I believe Surface Laptop Studio 2. And maybe Laptop Go 3, but I'm less confident on that one. But those are the three that are currently, as far as I'm aware, on the table for this year. Again, that could change, so please don't quote me on that as of now. Your thoughts on the UK's Competition and Market Authority blocking the Microsoft Activision deal merger, and do you think Microsoft will succeed on appeal in the UK courts? I don't know.
The rumor is now, the breaking news is that they're going to appeal in the next couple of days, and that they hired the lawyer that successfully defended Apple.
Interesting. So, I will say it's very rare to have a successful appeal to the CMA, but it's not impossible. So we'll see. We'll see if Microsoft has good enough arguments to come back. I think they probably do. I think the UK authority here were severely misinformed with some of the facts they were looking at, and so Microsoft will just be like, hey, yeah, you're wrong about a lot of the reasons why you say this can't happen. Here's why. When do you think Microsoft will draw the line between which incoming features are supposed to come to Windows 11 and 12? I don't know how they decipher that. I think it's really comes down to what features or changes are significant enough that would require the user to relearn or adapt to the edition. If it requires that, then it's something that they should reserve for a major release. If it's something that enhances the existing experience, then I think it can ship as a feature update on top of the in-market version of Windows.
Do we have hands-on with the new Pixel Fold? No. Google doesn't really talk to us too much. They talk about like some of their software stuff when they do Flutter. They like to tell us about Flutter updates. But other than that, I don't have really any contact with the Pixel team. So don't anticipate any exclusive or hands-on coverage with that device. We'll just have to probably get it like any other schleppo.
Do you know if any moments are planned for after 23H2, assuming Moment 4 isn't a separate update to 23H2? Yeah, I think we might like get maybe Moment 6 or maybe Moment 7. I think obviously these will stop towards the end of spring next year, I think, as they roll up to do Windows V next. How much do you think the Go 4 would cost in the UK in October when it is released? Probably $399, $429. I don't know.
I didn't know
Okay.
Bridge collapsed.
What
The
bridge?
company that makes those keyboards.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh, wow. Really? I thought they were doing well.
it's their website is like gone.
Oh dear. Didn't
Yeah,
they
yeah, they
like?
make
Didn't?
this. They make Surface Pro
Yeah,
accessories.
yeah. Didn't we have those for the review, like the Pro
Yeah,
8 stuff?
I
Yeah,
reviewed the
yeah.
Bridge Pro Plus.
How strange.
Announced it.
They
Yeah.
used to sell a Magic Trackpad for Windows, and I never got one, but I was looking for one recently actually, and they're not available anywhere. Probably because the company died. Do I use the SwiftKey beta? I do not.
Wow, Razer was rumored to be buying them.
Not anymore. That would have been cool.
The deal progressed through multiple stages, including an audit by Razer. The deal, according to former Bridge employees, was nearly complete, but ultimately fell through at the 11th hour.
I wonder why. Maybe they found something that they didn't like the look of. You guys are in debt? No thanks.
Wow, 9 to 5 Mac has a huge story on it.
That's a shame. They were cool.
Yeah. Collector's items. I'll sell for $10,000. Who wants? Surface Pro Bridge.
Zach, do you think Microsoft will ever bring back Microsoft Wallet / Microsoft Pay in Android if future Surface phones are successful? No. The only way I can see that being a thing is if Microsoft decides to tackle Google head on and build its own equivalent to Google Play services. And that includes its own app store, its own framework to replace Play components, whatever else. And that would obviously include a Google Wallet competitor. If they're not going to do that, then there's no point. Then they don't need to do their own version.
Do you know what happened with Microsoft's own CPUs that were rumored to be Azure first a couple of years ago? I don't know. I mean, they're probably still in the works, but there's a lot of misinformation.
There really
there was
is. Yeah.
Windows latest ran a story talking about how Microsoft, it looks like they're going to build their own processors to take on Apple, which was complete nonsense. I'll say it over and over again. I don't think Microsoft's going to build processors, not like at the scale that we're thinking of for devices we want. They'll build like little micro co-processors. They already do that for Surface. But like this idea that, and I was going to do an editorial about this, maybe I'll do it over the weekend or something, that like Microsoft's just going to like push aside ARM and Qualcomm, be like, we got this.
Right. Yeah.
And we're going to just out of their blue build this killer ARM-based processor that's going to take on Apple on day. Like, it's impossible. It's impossible. And I've said this over and over again, that it took, people are like, yeah, but Apple came out with the M1. It took them a decade to get to the M1. That's why they didn't have the M1 in 2015 or 2016 or 2017, because they couldn't build that processor yet. They had to do the A series for its phones, and they kept getting better and better and better. And as they finally built their way up a decade after, they finally were like, okay, we could do an M1 now. Then they did the M2. So now they're there. But it took them a decade to get there. Microsoft is not going to build its own chips for its own PCs, especially since Qualcomm this year will announce officially and unveil Orion, which is the Nuvia processors from the company that they bought, the ex-Apple employees. Like, and the story coming out is that it's been, companies have already seen and used the chip, and they're really happy, and they're building a lot of devices to support it. Like, why would Microsoft go like, oh, that's cool, that's going to be the chip that takes on Apple. We're going to do our own. Like, why? Do you know how expensive it is to make a processor? Like, and they're not a hardware company. Like, they just don't have the scale to do that. And you already have Intel, you have AMD, you have Qualcomm. Why do they need, and then it's technically MediaTek. Like, why would you need another company making processors? Like, it's just absurd. So I don't know what's going on with the server stuff, maybe, but I don't think NVIDIA does a lot in the server business. There's a lot of other companies, AMD and Intel, both big in the server business. Like, I don't understand why Microsoft they couldn't even make it. The most they could do is design the chip, but they would still need like a plant like TSMC to go and actually make the thing. Apple doesn't make its own chips either. Apple designs its own chips, but they have to go out through TSMC to actually make the chips, because it's like, it costs Intel, I think, $10 billion to make one foundry, to make it, to build it, not to mention running it. Like, it's $10 billion. It's absurd the amount of money it takes to do processors, which is why the industry's kind of consolidated over the years. There aren't new chip makers, there's fewer chip makers now. So there you go. When can we expect the next interesting editorial for something spicy like Windows or Surface? I mean, it doesn't really work like that, but he just did one this week. So, I mean, you just did the Surface Duo thing, and you had one a couple weeks ago too on something else, right?
I don't remember.
Oh, the Surface Go 4.
Yeah. I write a lot of them, okay?
Yeah, seriously. I'll do one on the why Microsoft won't ever make ARM processors for laptops, because I think that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Like, the story was based on like 2 or 3 job listings. Do you know how many people take, like, what kind of team you need to build a processor, like to design one? It requires more than a couple people. I can tell you that much. They do have.
Sorry,
I was going to say, sorry. They do have researchers that look into chips and experiment with new designs, but I think that's for their own benefit, not to actually make their own chips.
I think the closest you'll ever get to this is Microsoft partnering with somebody to create a Microsoft branded chip, like what we see with the SQ3. But
yeah, possibly.
I don't see anything more than that.
Oh, well, that's where they're getting the benefit from already, though, right? They work very closely with Intel. Like, when Intel came out with its new big little architecture, it's not like that came out and Microsoft was like, oh shit, we should do something with Windows. They worked hand in hand so that when that chip came out, Windows 11 was optimized to leverage that technology. They have the whole not task scheduler, it's some kind of scheduler that basically helps manage app processes so that when something's in the background, it uses the E chip, the E cores versus the P cores. Like, that was built in day one from when those chips came out, because Microsoft works so closely with Intel. They work closely with Qualcomm. You know, the rumor is with Windows 12, it's going to be even more ARM optimized, which is funny to me because I believe it, but Windows 11 is also extremely ARM optimized compared to Windows 10. That a lot of people don't talk about. So yeah, they're going to continue doing that, but they're already working closely with Qualcomm hand in hand with these new next-gen chips, so that they're very much optimized and leverage the best that Windows can do. And they work closely with AMD. So again, I don't know why they need to go out and like make their own. They're already getting all the benefits without a large amount of capital investments. So
is the Duo 2 dead now? Can we hope some kind of improvements, whatever ship? Surface Duo 2 will be officially supported until the end of next year. I would be shocked if we don't get at least one more major update for it. I think they'll deliver Android 14 for it, and maybe even Android 15. I don't know. So yeah, I'm sure there'll be new stuff. I don't know if Microsoft will be putting its heart and soul into it as they once were. Like, you know, there were plans at some point to bring inking to the lock screen and a Windows 365 docking mode. I don't know if that stuff is still planned or if they're just going to lean on Google stuff for as just part of like major releases. I don't know. This is the answer to that. But you will still get security updates for sure, and you will probably get major new features for the next year and a half. Major new OS releases, that is, for the next year and a half.
Someone's asking about my earbuds. The current ones I'm using right now for this podcast are the Lenovo ones, because Lenovo just gave me a sample of them, and they're really good. They're only like $99. I don't even know if they still sell them, but they're comfortable and they work well. But if I had to recommend, like, the ones I use, like at the gym or when I'm flying, hands down, no argument, Bose Quiet Comfort Earbuds 2. They're the best headphones I've ever used in my life. I love them. They get great battery life, amazing noise cancellation that you can not just have on or off, but you can set it how much, like 70%, 80%. So at the gym, I keep it 70%. So it blocks out most noise, but I can still hear some background noise, or someone comes up to me and says something, I can still hear a little bit. Plus with ANC, you still get that weird effect sometimes that feels like the pressure in the ear. So when you're able to turn it down a little bit, you don't get that effect. But I absolutely love them. They're expensive. I think they're $300. But I swear by them. They're not even technically meant for the gym. I actually have the gym versions, but the gym versions don't have ANC. They're very comfortable and will stay in. But I just use the Quiet Comfort ones at the gym, too, because of the ANC, and they work great at the gym. They do have some mild water resistance. So I don't have any issues there, but there you go.
Is there any chance for some hardware to be announced during build? Are you going there in person? So part one of your question, not to my knowledge. last year they announced Project Volterra build, and we were aware that that was coming for quite a while before that. I've heard nothing for this build, so I do not think we're going to hear or see any new hardware. I mean, what would they announce a build? I don't. There's nothing there really for them to announce. And are we going there in person? The answer to that is no, because Microsoft didn't invite us. In fact, they didn't invite any press. No press
Yeah,
attended
it's no
build, to my
press.
knowledge.
I will
Just
also say
developers.
I'm hearing a lot of press aren't going to Google I/O.
Interesting. That's shocking, considering that we know
Yeah.
the Pixel Fold's coming.
Yeah, well, I mean, the idea is with the Pixel Fold, they're just going to kind of announce it there.
Right, they're
I
launching
think
it a
some
bit
of the
later.
bigger sites
Yeah,
will
yeah.
probably get their own hands on before there. Um, and I think it's only a 1 day event this year instead of two. And so,
Hmm.
yeah, but and a lot of companies, media right now is tightening their wallets. A lot of companies don't want to spend extra money for travel. But yeah, I've heard some big ones aren't going. So it ever since the pandemic, it's harder to justify these trips when we just do everything remotely. It's like just give me the information, give me the briefings,
Yeah.
have a briefing local, I'll go to it, give me the photos. Like Acer, just like I said. Like Acer could have had an event for the Swift X16. Come to New York, check it out. Or they could just mail me one. I'll do
Yeah.
photos, I'll do the hands-on, send it back to them, and get the same result,
I will
So
say the only benefit really to attending in-person events, especially conferences like Build, is
talk to people.
chatting. Yeah.
Sure.
I some of my best scoops come from just chatting with people face to face over
Sure.
drinks,
Yeah, that's true.
because people are more willing to talk openly face to face than they are over message for
You
obvious
can also
reasons.
read their body language.
Absolutely, yeah. I can ask them, "Hey, so is Andromeda coming?" And they can look at me and only pull a face, and I'll be like, "Okay,
Yeah.
I get it."
Yeah. Daniel, you never cover Azure, and this area is very interesting. Says you. uh, yeah, we don't cover Azure much because two reasons. One, none of us actually do find it interesting. That's not to say we don't find it important. It's very important to Microsoft. There's no argument there, and it does very well. We're just not the site or the people to cover it. It's outside of our knowledge base. We don't have any experience with it. Could we hire someone that does that? Yeah, possibly. The question is, though, what's our return on investment on that? Like, are we going to get like 10,000 new readers a month because of our Azure coverage? Or do we monetize that? There's a lot of questions in terms of investment for it, and we just haven't. The brand's Windows Central is more focused right now on future leaning consumer technology, whether that's PC, gaming, and AI. That's where we're focusing on. Not even like we don't even do a lot of budget stuff anymore. We'll do budget stuff when it's actually like really cool budget things. I love using the HP example. They released a I think it was the Pavilion. No, it was an NV last year. The NV 14 for like $1,000 with an OLED
Yeah.
display. It was a really good laptop. It was one of the first ones to come down to that price point with OLED. So stuff like that we'll cover, but we're not going to cover like the best $800 laptop or anything like that, just because it's not exciting. We don't enjoy covering it, but we are excited about the future of gaming. For instance, all the new handhelds that are coming out. That's the next generation stuff. Cloud gaming is awesome. New form factors in PCs, but Azure, oh my God, that's Mary Jo Foley. She can go. She loves talking about that stuff. Zach and I will fall asleep. So
Yeah. All right, a couple more questions, then I do need to head out. What's the name of your new all-in-one PC again? How are you feeling about it now? This is the HP NV34. I love it. I think it's great. It's very powerful. The display's gorgeous. It looks nice. There's just no complaints, really. The webcam thing is awesome as well. Yeah, I love it. I think it's probably one of the best purchases I've made in a while, to be honest. For-
yeah, that's a good one.
What would be the future of HoloLens now Apple is rumored to unveil their glasses in a month? You've got to remember, Apple's headset next month is a VR headset. It's not an AR headset. It does mixed reality things, but through cameras. It's not a true AR headset like the HoloLens. So there's still a market for that, and I guess HoloLens is the only one really there still, and will be for at least a handful more years before Apple is ready to do an AR headset. But yeah, don't get me wrong. I think the Apple headset will certainly heat up the fire. But Microsoft seems content with the HoloLens 2. They've said publicly that they'll do a HoloLens 3 when customers ask for it, and that kind of implies that customers aren't asking for it. So yeah, they're going to keep supporting it. HoloLens 2 just is getting Windows 11 in the next couple of months, so that it's still fully supported. Any update on how 23H2 will roll out from internal sources? Will it be a CU or OS swap? I'm pretty sure it's a CU. Don't quote me on that because I haven't actually double checked, but I'm pretty sure it would be a patch rather than an OS release. It doesn't make sense. Actually, I don't know. Don't quote me on that. I don't know for sure. So,
By the way, we should have addressed all the I don't want to call them morons, but people complaining about the Pixel Fold's bezels.
oh, get right.
Hilarious. Yeah. These people are just the worst. Michael Fisher had a great take on it. Like, it's really missing the forest for the trees, or the trees for the forest, however that expression goes. But like, the thing has so much other cooler stuff going on in it. And you're like, the bezels aren't that thick. Like, you still need a place to hold the darn thing. But like, really, I can't believe people are like hung up on that. I look at the device, I'm just like, that looks awesome.
Yeah, no, I'm the same. Absolutely. It's, I'm coming from a Duo 2, which has even bigger bezels than the Pixel.
Yeah, totally. What the future of HoloLens now that Apple's rumored to unveil the glasses in a month? I mean, right now HoloLens is mostly for industrial use and eventually military use. I don't see how the Apple plays into that. Apple plays into the consumer market, the rich premium market, and developers. So I don't see it affecting it at all. I also don't think it's. I mean, I have questions about that market. There's been no successes so far in this market. The only thing you can claim is VR gaming and some social stuff for a very small niche audience. I don't know if Apple cracks that with a $3,000 headset. I just don't. Eventually, they may get there. We have a couple of years though, so.
All right. With that, we do need to head off because I need to go. So thank you everybody for tuning in. We'll be back next Friday. Follow us on Twitter. We'll keep you updated when we go live. But until then, we will see you next time. Bye bye.